And today, Jocelyn is going to talk about that and much more. She is an author. She is a great human being, and we've become really good friends, and I'm happy to introduce her. Office, culture, and politics expert, CEO of JocelynGreenky.com. Jocelyn?
Yeah. Good morning. You guys are all well. And welcome to 5 Generations. So this is the first time in history that in the working place in America that there are 5 generations at work. And as you can see, we have Gen Z, born in 1994. There are 23 million and growing number of these. Millennials, born in 81 to 94, 75.4 million. They have just surpassed the baby boomers, and this is of April. Gen X, 65 to 80, which 50 million, the smallest group. The baby boomers, 75 million. And of course, the traditionalists, 1946 and before, at 55 million. It's an incredible group, and we're going to go through what these generations are going to mean to you as we grow. And please note that the millennials are growing because of the influx of people who are coming to the country and staying either through school or just moving to the United States. So you can point to a lot of reasons why you're not as productive as you like to be as a team. You can point to tools or lack of organization, even some politics. But I see a bigger problem that you might not see right away. And this problem is the biggest conflict and drag from your productivity, which is intergenerational conflict. It's bigger than tools, it's bigger than politics, and no one in this room is an exception to it. So you might not see the conflicts now, but I'm going to show you where they lurk, what you can do about them, and how to solve them. So let's dive in. So look at this incredible cartoon. I did it. I knew I could. Why should I care? What's in it for me? And you can see 4 different generations at this graduation and how they look. And look at how the artist actually portrayed them. They have their body language, their clothing. Look at that baby boomer. You know, there's plenty of baby boomers in this room, and we don't look like that. We're in shape, we're healthy, we're happy. But you can see here, this is the kind of thing that's portrayed in the media, as well as some of this is reality. But you can see, as we walk through, what each of these generations are actually bringing to the table. And intergenerational challenges are not just cultural. They're not just an HR issue, they're a leadership one. Because as leaders, and all of you in this room, you want all of your team to be as creative and productive together as possible. I'm not going to be able to solve all of these today, but I certainly can show you what's going on. So let's just take a quick look and see, is there really a generational divide at work?
Millennial,
Gen X,
Boomer, Traditionalist.
It's like my kid, if they forget the phone, it's like they're gonna die.
My phone doesn't leave like a 6-inch radius from me.
They're like, oh, these kids with their tech gadgets, you know, and all we have is newspapers and abacus.
he just showed us the different generations because he couldn't remember.
That is definitely my generation. I like that.
I prefer a quick, right to the point answer, no back and forth email. I have a hard time adapting to sending emails. So sometimes my bosses get a little frustrated, but I'm a millennial. I check social media probably like 50 or 60 times a day.
I mean, that's pretty serious, but yes, I would.
The ones that are in Gen X and then the baby boomers, they're a little like to be praised and they like that constant feedback.
I don't know about like not reading it entirely, but like definitely like skimming.
Skimming it, great.
You're saying that wasted 4 hours? Multiple people, multiple generations looking at the same problem.
That's 4 different answers that may answer the same question, but in a different style.
Now you have so many new things to learn, like let's move on to the next thing.
It gave me a lot of thought into the different generations that work here. I mean, we need each other.
Okay, so something to consider. Here are some facts. According to Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, and Inc., the fact is that diverse teams outperform homogeneous. That's a fact. So not just women at the top, but cross-culture and cross-generation. We can see it in stock market gains, company growth, boardroom decision-making, and ROI, which is all critical to each one of us in this room. So why is this a problem? What are the challenges that we have, that we're facing? As you can see, that no one communicates the same way. It's unbelievable. If you look at this slide, you can see, oh my God, question nothing, question everything, questions, enough questions. Everybody from different generations actually looks at this differently. But we're all working together. So how important is it for me to get into the head of who I'm speaking to, depending on the generation, and that person to get into the head knowing what generation I'm from? It's almost cliche in a way about how we communicate. We know that traditionalists and boomers like face-to-face meetings. We know that the younger generations are on their text and emojis, are using abbreviations, and it's ripe for communication failure. And each generation has different expectations of how to be treated and how to be spoken to and how to have inner communication. One of the biggest stories I can tell you is that recently I was working at the Wall Street Journal in a consulting capacity and a huge international mentor match program. So it included LinkedIn, a major credit card, and of course the Wall Street Journal. And you can only imagine the vast amounts of people who were involved in this process from all the different companies and different agencies. And we were in a room and somebody, a woman, had made a vast mistake and she was admitting her mistake to a group of 8 of us in a room. So 6 people are on their phone multitasking. She was choked up and she was crying. I felt terrible for her. And she realized that nobody was really listening to her. So she took that silence that I just did and forced everyone to put their phone down and look at her. And she said, now I have the respect of your ear. And she went through and she told us what she had done and the issues that it was going to cause. But the point is that the generations want different types of things, and we'll get into that in a second. The biggest thing is that we know, as we all go into HR and everything else in our offices, top-down leadership is over. Where we used to, at least I did, and over my 30-year career, would go in, I would be working with a certain boss, or even I've done this in the past, where I have an idea and I go and I expect people just to carry it out. Just go do it. Execute on my vision. But you can see now, the boss at the top are telling people what to do. And now, because of the community that we've created and the multi-generations that exist, the leader needs to be at the bottom, just like Michael Bloomberg, who sat in an open floor space with his subordinates and his partners, and that is why he was considered one of the best mayors in the city. Oftentimes, CEOs are definitely within their world and within their group and their subordinates. So if you want innovation and productivity and ideas, it comes from those players at the bottom. You just never know where the next idea that's going to make a game-changing change for you is going to be coming from. And we know when relationships suffer, productivity suffers. So one slide that's missing here is who I am. And who I am is an author. I wrote the book called The Big Sister's Guide to the World of Work. It's an international book that's published around the world. I have been fortunate enough to hold leadership jobs at companies like Philip Morris, AT&T. I was the head of broadcasting and marketing for Leonard Media, which is Rolling Stone, Us, and Men's Journal. I was the former editor-in-chief of the world's largest publisher called Hachette Filipaki. So I launched George Magazine, Elle, Car and Driver, Premiere, Eating Well, lots of different magazines. And I co-founded 3 companies, including Colin Cowie and my own software and consulting firm. And I've been very fortunate to work with cultures around the world, including Americans and African Americans, the gay and lesbian community, Koreans, Japanese, Germans. And I have over 30 years really been able to see how all of these cultures and generations have really been working together. And I know, and that's what drove me to write the book, for particularly at the time when I wrote it for women, a guide of do this and don't do that. And the reason I bring it up is when relationships suffer, productivity suffers, and that's called PMS. And it's political misery syndrome. So when you are unhappy, you do stuff that you make a mistake, and then you resent it, and then you hate people that you're working for, and the morale goes down, and it's a vicious circle. So that's why this is critical. You don't want that to happen. And here's the scoop. No one's quitting anytime soon. We know for a fact that women, by 2024, 1 in 5 women, that's 6.3 million women in the workforce, will be over 50. There is no reason for them to quit. They're healthy, they have to work, financially responsible for a family, they're going to be living longer. We know, and you guys who market to the youth is something that for you to know, and that's just around the corner. So who are these generations? Let's start with Generation Z. There's 23 million teenagers, if you will, who are out there. And they're really considered the me generation. They are incredibly smart. They're on the internet. They know more than we've ever known at the same age, of course, because there's, obviously so much information is on the internet. They are not team players. They have terrible interpersonal skill sets because they've been focused like this. They've grown up, and all they know is terrorism, 9/11, Facebook, Snapchat. That's what they know. That's what they expect. And what can we give that to them as leaders? We can give them room to grow and fun and humor. That's what they need. They need to lighten up. They also are going to have to solve the worst environmental problem in history as they grow, and they know it. Millennials. Of course, this is what everyone's talking about all the time. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of influx of people into the States. There's people who go to school here, they stay. That's why the number's growing, 75.4 million. They're ambitious, they're optimistic, they're very financial savvy. They work to live, not live to work. They want that balance. They're the 3rd generation of latchkey kids, so most of their parents, both parents were working. And they're saddled with student debt, and this is why they're so financially responsible. They're very informal, they expect change, and they're more ethnically and racially accepting than almost every other generation to date. And what they need from us is to feel as if they're part of a community at work and not just there for a job. They want to know that they're doing something bigger and more important for just that. Generation X, 50 million. They're the smallest group because At the time, a lot of people were not, having multiple babies. They just was not part of the baby boom, if you will. They want emotional security, independence. X comes from the marketing perspective. They didn't know at the time when that group was becoming of age to be marketed to what to call them. So we called them X, and eventually this is how Y and Z became into focus. They're casual, they're friendly. They also want to know that they're loyal to a person at a company and not the brand. So although you might work at a major company like A&E or whatever the major broadcasting film company it is, they really want to be attached to the boss, to the leader, to the colleagues. That's why they're there. And again, their historic background comes from MTV. They grew up with rap, the Challenger explosion, computers, the end of Cold War, AIDS, and of course, Nixon resigning. And what they need from us as leaders is for their voices to be heard and freedom to work with very little supervision. And my favorite, baby boomers. If I can get it to the next slide. There we go. 75 million baby boomers. Rules should be obeyed unless I have a different idea, and then they shouldn't be obeyed. We break the rules. Ask for forgiveness versus, ask for okay. They're experimental, they're individualistic, they're free-spirited, they focus on social cause. Their work ethic is measured in hours. So I work at a company, and I've always worked very long-term at companies, 4 or 5 years. I was with Colin for 13, Cowie. And I have to tell you that you think you're supposed to get benefits because of the hours that you work there, but that's not true anymore. And people have to shift their mind thinking because that's just not relevant anymore. Very loyal, and relationships are key. And again, they're there not just for the brand anymore, but for the leaders and for the people who give them that respect. And they grew up with the assassination of JFK, the walk on the moon, of course Nixon resigning, Watergate, and of course we all remember OJ, etc., and Diana. So this is the traditionalists or the silent generation. 1946 and before, it's 55 million. They're most patriotic, they're noble, they have the best interpersonal skill sets than all of us. They're loyal to their employers and expect the same in return. Basically, people who are over 70 really just want the respect and the ear and the attention and no electronics when you're actually interacting with them. Of course, they saw the Great Depression, World War II, and they were brought up as children who were seen and not heard. Want not, waste not is their modum operandi. Even my own mother, she's 85 years old and still does some work. It's amazing at the pace that she goes. Really great. You just have to give her the instruction and how to do it. So the one group that's not up here are vets. Okay, vets account for 22.3 million people in this country. 1.3 of them are women. They cross all of these generations, and they're a subset, but I just wanted to make sure that I mention them, because oftentimes vets work with vets, and they're supportive of that. So what are the risks of not addressing the cross-generational rift? For you, okay, we know that productivity is going to suffer if relationships do. You guys are going to spend too much time fixing and mending relationships. You're going to work against the type instead of leveraging each generation and the positive attributes that they can bring to you, and underestimate the value of each generation. Waste time solving the wrong problems, and in the end, it's going to cost you time, money, and morale. So, what are we going to do about it? We're going to find common ground. So of course, as the former editor-in-chief of Eating Well magazine, I always tell people to find a day every few weeks for people to bring in their own food and share stories of where the recipe comes from. Is a very simple way for people to start having a conversation. It can come from anywhere, and you won't believe the stories and of course the good food that you're going to get. But on to more of the technical side, which is replace efficiency with effectiveness and go face to face. No matter what you guys do with all of the people that you're interacting with, having these face-to-face conversations, even if they last like 8 minutes, is really critical. And it's a benefit for everybody. Please ask the staff to put down the phone. Please ask them to either make it a no phone, a no technical phone for just between 5 and 8 minutes a day, or whenever you're having a meeting. It will benefit everybody back and forth on a mutual side. Encourage your teams to own results. It won't matter in the future what age, what culture someone comes from. Having them own up to what those results are based upon your best practices is important. So in the end, they have to know how to get to that, and if they fail, they fail. But it's not going to be giving special incentive to certain people over other people based on what you guys need as results. So, create opportunities for learning across teams. And what this really means is don't silo people. You're not going to put all of the young set in one group and older people in another group. It's really important that you constantly mix, because at that time, people are going to start understanding what's expected from different generations. And as a leader in those teams, it's good for you to understand and at least have a handle on what those generations are going to expect that you can relate to your teams, and that creating those teams where they're actually talking and working together. Okay, so here's social media. Here's the story. Everyone does it. And you saw that video before where the guy checks his social media status 50 times a day. It's probably true. And so particularly in different types of offices, like open floor plans, if it's a home office, if it's your a regular state, people are always checking. I would actually not tell you not to encourage people to do it. They should do it. There's a lot they can learn. People should have you could even assign a story or something for each person to follow that you can use as a team and allow them to be, quote, an expert on that and open the dialogue. So regardless of the generation people are talking about. So we talked about having a grade 8. So every day, everyone can have 8 minutes, 18 minutes, whatever it is that you decide. But telling people not to do social media during work, I think, is actually not a benefit. You get upset and they feel guilty because they're going to do it anyway. Mentorship doesn't move in just one direction, right? So here's the story. Right now I'm working with a nonprofit organization. It's one of the largest in the world, and they've assigned me mentors. I have to tell you, the first one is under 30 and the other one is over 60. And I'm assigned to mentor other people, which I do anyway, but I have somebody who's under 30 and somebody over 60. I encourage you to allow that mentorship to really go both ways. I'm going to learn an incredible amount from somebody who's under 30, and in retrospect, of course, I'm going to understand also how I need to work with someone over 60. In this particular nonprofit, most of the people I'm working for are over 55, and I have been in meetings with my phone and actually recording the conversations. It's not going over well, because the truth is I wanted to test to see what the response was. There's no electronics with people over 55 or 60. Very little, or at least tell them what you expect so they can understand that you're pulling them into 2016. And if you're going to provide tools to people, you have to provide training. So if it's not coming from HR or IT, find a mentor, someone younger, someone older, the best person to train other people from the different generation. One thing I wanted to say about mentorship again, I always encourage people to get out of the office and spend time out of the office. We've all been there. Some relationship is really solidified once you're out of the office and bonding together. So toxic people, we are in the entertainment field. There's a few that have lurked around in every one of our career stops, right? So we also know that a lot of toxic people are either gossips or they're actually out to cause harm. And we know who they are, and we know it's really not okay anymore to have somebody around. And in Facebook, there's actually the no asshole rule. You cannot hire somebody who somebody else thinks through the hiring process who's not a good person. They literally will not be hired. So I recommend highly, if you know if somebody, or you think that somebody only knows where everything lies, where the dead bodies are, it's really encouraging to get that toxic person out of the office. Because eventually, as you know, they come after you. So stop hiring one type of person. We all do that in the past. We hire people who are friends of friends, who we know through, somebody else, or we both in the same sorority or fraternity, or went to the same college. The truth is, shaking it up, as I said before in that other slide, the diversity is really what's going to make you that much more powerful, that much more stronger. Seeing fresh perspective. We're all expected to come up with incredibly groundbreaking ideas, and it's good to diversify. So by not hiring just one kind of person, it's really going to give you a broad breadth of how you can move yourself forward in your team, in your company. And finally, become aware of your own bias. When we're meeting new people, somebody's not dressed right, the posture isn't correct, or the hair is off, or the tattoos, or whatever it is, try to put your bias aside and give somebody really a chance to prove themselves and to give them the opportunity to really bring their ideas, and put yourself aside and let them speak and let them provide what they really can do and help you move forward. I will tell you this story to end this. I was with my partner in one of the software companies that I was co-founded, and he's older than I am, and Peter tends to dress not exactly to date. So we went to a VC firm to raise capital. I mean, to me, it really doesn't matter what he's wearing, right? So he was wearing white socks with tassels, the jeans with the belt and the shirt was tucked in, gray hair, and we went to a VC firm, and VC firms are expecting people who are entrepreneurs to be in their 20s. And they do that because 20-year-olds have nothing to do but work, versus single mother or older generational person. So when we went into this VC firm, I walked in and I said, "Hi, I'm Jocelyn," and it was two 28-year-olds, maybe they were 30, maybe. And they said, "Where's the CEO and where's the COO?" And I'm like, "I am the CEO." And so it was a shock, because between the two of us, me being a woman, him being older, dressed the way he was, and them being young, we all got it in about 2 seconds that we went like this. Okay? We went through the whole pitch and the whole thing, but it was really, the bias was pretty dramatic, and that's the point. It goes both ways. So not just each generation is thinking something different about the rest. So I want to leave you just for a really quick video of what people think about the older generation.
Hey, how's it going? You can stand right there, that's your mark. How you doing?
I'm great, how are you?
Great.
Awesome.
Just tell us your first name and your age.
My real age?
My name is Paolo. I'm 25 years old.
My name is Daniela, and I'm 19.
24. 35.
31. 33.
I'm 26 years old.
What age do you consider to be old?
Late 40s?
Maybe 50.
I feel like 30 is a new 20, so I'd say like 40 is old.
I'd probably say 50s.
I'd like you to show me how an old person would cross the street. Show me how an old person would send a text message. How might an old person do a push-up? What about jumping jacks? Okay, hang on. There's someone I want you to meet.
Hello, I'm Birch. I'm 66.
I am Daphne, and I'm 68.
I'm Dee, and I'm 55.
George Bassbinder, 75.
My name's Parvati. I'm 70.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We're going to give you about 2 minutes to teach each other something that you are good at.
I can teach you a jump that I do.
Okay, please.
Both of your legs go up, and your arm goes up, and your left arm goes like to the side.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, lift, 1, 2, 3, and bring it to your heart, and bring it to your heart, and head in, yeah.
You want to try to get your balance. And raise up.
Now, it's hard, right?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when you come out of the turn, either way, you go back to that place.
Over. Now forward. Over. Yeah.
Square like this, and knee hook. Hook, jab, cross, hook, and then we'll go like this, all right?
1, 2, 3.
Now, what age might you consider to be old?
Probably 80 or 90. He could just do everything that I told him to do.
An age that I would consider to be old now might be.
Okay, so you guys can see that we all can learn from each other. And that woman at 55, she's pretty hot, okay? I'm close. So, conversations matter. Talk to each other, keep it open, keep your bias aside, give people the tools, make sure that they can do it. No one's quitting. Contact me, I'm happy to help anybody in the room, with company, personally, professionally. I have a Twitter, of course, we all do, and I speak on and work, seminars and the like. Thank you. And I'm supposed to mention that Boomer's Guide to Staying in the Game is on Friday, right? Thursday. There it is.
Jocelyn, you said you were going to answer.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm so sorry. Hello. I'm a little nervous.
Now, I know I talked to you about some of the experiences that I have had in the workplace. And you were asking if some of the people in here had experiences.
Anybody have any generational issues with somebody younger or older?
That they'd like to share? Vicky Free? Yes. No? No.
Well, have you noticed that, are there generational issues so far in your companies? Have you noticed anything at all? No. Yes.
Sure. We do have greater turnover of the younger generation.
Right.
Than we do of the older.
You do, yeah.
It's just something that we live with nowadays. They come in, they stay. So you see a lot. You see even more turnover.
Greater turnovers, he's saying.
Series of things.
Right. So when you're interviewing, do you actually ask them like what their expectancy is, or do you just expect them to leave in 6 or 8 months?
We do ask. We ask about their expectations, obviously. We're not big enough. I don't think my office is big enough to have you really use use of the data on that.
Right, of course.
But we do see that, when they look at opportunities and not necessarily to leave for another job.
Right.
They may be just to take some time off to do something else.
Right.
Other than just go to a competitor.
Well, I find that, when it comes to office politics, because that's what I'm working a lot with, is that the younger generation, they just don't know. They're literally the one-on-ones of how to work a room and how to work with the boss. They expect the boss to understand them rather than them fitting in with the boss. That's a critical issue. They just have not been taught the ABCs of office politics. Yes.
A little bit related to that question, I think. I find that.
The younger generation or millennial generation, I think they arrive on day one and want your job that are 4 steps up the ladder. And so I think it would be interesting to hear from you what kinds of encouragement we can give them in terms of how we give them feedback or provide the kinds of tips that you gave in your presentation to, encourage them to keep with their career and keep working hard, and that it doesn't come instantaneously like a new post on Facebook.
Right, that's what you say though, because I can only tell you that everybody in this room, when you got your first job, did you not want to just move up right away? They're just saying it. We never thought of saying that. They're voicing the ability to talk, and the reason that they're saying it out loud is because they can say whatever they want. That's really the difference. I thought that when I got my first job at Philip Morris. I'm like, I want her job. But who would have done that at the time? So having the patience and telling them, look, this is the process. You're here for at least 8 months, giving them milestones, and that you have to achieve this, this, and this, whatever those benchmarks are, at least they know what they're going for. And that goes for any generation. So you have a boomer who's on the cusp of becoming a traditionalist. Mostly they're running the company, but they have to have a board of directors, and they too have to have benchmarks to keep their job. It's the very same thing. It's equal across the board.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I have the mic. I've found it hard to give creative feedback to millennials without them taking it as a personal attack or, when we were taught and the boss has to make a change, we made the change.
Right.
And I find now there's a lot of resistance and they take it very personally and you've offended them. And
you know what? That's practice and tone of voice. You know what I mean? It's a way that, it's not even the message, it's how you deliver the message. I'm sure you're doing it fabulously. But, practicing right? No, you suck. No, I'm just kidding. We want us to say that it's practicing it and that you're delivering it in a very flat tone, that they have to, step up to the plate creatively, whatever the issues are, and then not emotionally react when they're attacking you. I hate to use that word, but when they're responding to you and attack, and they're doing that because they're growing up in an age of being allowed to say whatever they feel like saying. So keep calm and pretend you're talking to a stone wall in some way, not like you're dead or they're dead, but it's not responding in a manner that's going to allow them to keep at it with you.
Similar to this gentleman's question, I've had in recent months 2 young employees come and say they wanted to leave for 3 months, one to go to Europe, one to go to Alaska. They didn't expect us to hold the job for them if we didn't want to. And, they both basically said, if I don't do it now, I'll never get to do it. And now looking back, I agree they're right. But it really upsets the whole structure of how we develop people and all that. And I'm wondering, since everybody coming up is younger, do we have to change the way we structure our business and plan for succession and that sort of thing if everybody's going to just wake up one morning and say, I want to go to Europe for 3 months?
All right, so why aren't you hiring somebody who's older with experience? Why are you not? She needs a job. No, but the point is, this is happening, and if I'm going for the job and I'm willing to take the same salary, if I have experience, I have contacts, I have a huge Rolodex, why are you not hiring me?
You want to come work for me?
but But that's what I'm saying, is if you have an equal job and you have somebody with experience, you're opening up your mind, you're getting your bias aside, and you're not siloing and hiring the same type of person. You're doing it to yourself.
Well, I know that he, knowing Seth, he likes to develop talent and bring them in.
I'm sorry, are we not talent? Am I not talent? Is she not talent? Is he not talent? I'm sorry. That doesn't count for me. I'm saying like.
Tell me what I paid a 28-year-old and you tell me if you still want the job.
You know what you know what? Ryan said there's plenty of people who want to make career shifts and they're willing to do what they need to do. And why are we not giving them the opportunity to do so?
Hi. One thing I find that's difficult is recruiting people to come work for a broadcast network. They want to work at like Hulu and Netflix, and they see us as like an old brand. So what would you recommend to recruit talent? And maybe your last answer might be the same.
Well, you know what? Is it really that hard to get people in the broadcast network? That's really... Okay, so that's a fact it is. Then I'm going to probably give you the same answer as with before. But the other part is also the fact that if you're in a broadcasting network, you really are exposed to the business in general. So rewrite your job description, because the truth is people are there for you. As I mentioned before, they're not so brand specific anymore. Like, I remember when I got a job at Rolling Stone, I was like, I literally got on my knees and prayed to God, thank you, Lord, for giving me a job at Rolling Stone. Of course, at that time, it was like the ultimate, I didn't know what I was in for, but people don't care about that anymore. They care about the leader. So you're selling yourself and not the company. So you might be going to Hulu, and that's what you're selling. Does it make sense?
We'll take one in the back.
Yeah, I don't know if this is now on. Sort of in the same vein as that, is that what is frustrating for me is that they don't care about the history of our business. They feel like broadcast is a dinosaur and throw it out. I'm like, well, it's $1 billion business.
Right.
And it's frustrating to me because when I came into the business, I was fascinated about it. I wanted to learn about it, the history, the evolution. And there just seems to be no desire or interest to learn it. They all want to work at NBC, but they want to take NBC into the new digital age as opposed to respecting its history and where it's come and how we move it together.
It's annoying.
It is. It's frustrating. But it's like, and the digital people want to hire the young people like this gentleman over here.
Right.
They're like, I want to hire someone that understands the history and the business so that we can grow it smart.
I know, but you're being biased too.
Yes.
So it goes both ways. So back to the bias, like, okay, it's annoying, that's the truth. But at some point, you got to get over it and start thinking like them, so your message is changing because you're part of the issue also.
Right. I do, and I do meet them in the middle.
Yeah.
I know we need to future-proof our network and grow, but I also still love the history of our business.
It's a wonderful business. It's not going.
It's not going anywhere.
Right. I agree.
Sandra.
I want to try and put this ageism fire out a little bit.
Oh, there you are. I was like, where's the voice coming from? Hello.
Hi. So I'm not going to talk about us and them. I guess I feel young, but I'm an old person according to those people on the screen. But I have an observation, and I'd love to get your reaction to it because I think you've experienced something similar. So I've worked in corporations and I've worked in startups and I've started my own companies, and I don't think it's just about age differences or generational differences. I think it's about environmental differences too. And I've seen on my last project actually, which was a very, very well-funded startup, which was almost entirely led by gray hairs like me, but with a very young CEO, and a lot of young developers and a lot of younger members of the team. And the friction that we're listening to in the room was not there. So I think because the environment of a startup is just some sort of fundamentally different, and the culture is fundamentally different. That so maybe the conversation we should be having isn't so much about generational, or is generational, but it's embedded in the notion of culture. And maybe what we're really talking about is culture shift within organizations versus really how to figure out.
That's all part of it. The culture shift. The culture of a company. I wish somebody had told me this when I was getting out of college. Is what happens day to day. It's literally when people come in and when they leave, how reports are given, the vibe of the CEO and the COO and how they plan on doing that. Whoever's funding that particular company and the board of directors who's actually talking to that CEO is setting the tone. Because somebody who's really young has no experience how to set the tone of a culture of a company, particularly under 30. It's just impossible. So you're right, there is about the culture, but he's getting help how to set the tone for that, and it's really great. The gray hairs got along with him. Why did you leave? Okay.
I'm kind of probably the minority in the room as a younger person, but it sounds like there's a lot of us and them with the generational divide, and even what I'm hearing in the room. And from my experience as a younger person, even from what you're saying, is that younger people don't have experience. But I mean, at 30,
no,
and you have a decade of
experience as a CEO.
Right. No, that is okay.
That's
okay. But what I've seen is, I think there's generally an unwillingness from the older generations to accept younger generations as their peers. And I think probably a lot of that is because they're old enough to be our parents, right? So they have children of their own, and they think of people in the younger generation as children, regardless of their experience. And I think that needs to be broken down, and like you said, people aren't quitting. So younger people are getting more and more experience without the ability to continue to advance.
That's exactly why there should be a cross-mentorship. I want you to mentor me, but I want you to have the same respect that I mentor you. So we don't have that rift, and that we really can join together and make it so it's a seamless work environment.
Hi, my name is Ramon. I work with BET. I'm also a younger person in the industry. I think it really is about, we do want to be in the broadcast industry, but we want to bring innovative and drastic ideas. And I just think that people are afraid to kind of adapt those ideas because they do sound drastic, but it's a drastic industry and it's moving very fast.
Fair enough. I think it's how you present it. And you know what, as a boss, you know, I would love to hear what your ideas, but you have to tell me if you know what the business practices are. So if you have to give me a business plan, you have to write me a pitch deck, and you have to give me the ROI for me to respect that you know how the business runs, then we're going to work together really well. But if you come in with a radical idea that's not backed up by the business practices that are set up by that broadcast network, I think you're just a young kid with a great idea who doesn't know what he's doing. We want you to come with the idea. Right.
Here's the thing: is if the idea is strong enough, why does it have to be fully baked? Why don't you put them with people? If you're talking about mentorship, put them with people who can help them formulate it all.
That's a great idea
too. They may not have the experience.
I agree.
How the business model works.
Absolutely. I've got a great TV show for office politics. But yes, if somebody has a really great idea like Ramon, he should be, and I was his supervisor, I would hook him up with somebody who was seasoned enough to help him bake the idea. That's exactly right. That's back to the cross-mentorship or not siloing in teams.
Just to go back to the video that you showed.
Yeah.
What was really so wonderful about that was the curiosity on both sides. And it's not easy to do this sometimes, but I think that the place where you can get all the generations together in a workplace is through curiosity about each other's ideas. But I think that somebody just said before that there's a lot of us versus them kind of conversation here, and it's like it's really systemic. And it just seems like we almost need like a tool or tools to be able to kind of make sure that it's something that's top of mind every day. Do you have any suggestions about how do you kind of make this a practice? Because if it's something we talk about here in the room for a half an hour and then we go, not going to do anything. But is there anything we can do in terms of making this a practice in the organization?
Yes, and that's why people hire me. You know, honestly, because it's a mantra, if you will, and it depends on what the issue is and what the breakdown is and what, you know, needs to happen. But honestly, in the end, if you're present and now you know what the issues are, and that you're present and you're able to put yourself in a place where you're talking to your colleagues, your subordinates, even your superiors, and putting yourself in their spot, and saying to you, please put yourself in my spot, the conversation then opens. And your mind really opens. So it's I can't say any one thing, because you and I would have to like figure out what's the thing that's stumbling on your part, and figure out what the best mantra for you and your staff is. But really being present and putting yourself in somebody else's spot all the time, based on their history, their culture, their background, and their generation, and what their experience is. Like, the one thing I didn't mention, all of you guys would be great if you got up out of your chair. Don't plan a meeting. Get up, walk around your office, stay in the doorway or by the cubicle, and literally have a 5-minute conversation with somebody and find out one thing about that person. Do they have a dog? What's the dog's name? That's all you need to know. Do they have a hobby? And follow up with that. They'll be so appreciative that you even remember anything about them. What's their mother's name? What's their favorite food? Do they like sports? What sports? What's your background? It's okay to ask somebody, where are you from? I always answer it, and they will be so appreciative. You're going to have loyalty out so prevalent if you just talk to them. But don't plan on it. It's door frame mentoring conversations.
So I have a couple of observations, one of which obviously is that both the young and the old are still saying us and them. Happening. Both you guys said exactly the same thing. And I think to Joel's point about, what's the tool? The tool is sort of the end product of everything that we do in the end anyway. It's incentivizing both sides. And the incentive is money, honestly. It really is, because our business in the end, regardless of how creative it is and how really cool it is, I want to be a part of it. It doesn't matter if it's broadcast, it doesn't matter if it's linear or OTT. Somebody's got to pay the bills to get that stuff done. And in the end, everyone has to figure out that there's an incentive. You want to be creative, you do that on your own. You have to do that. But there has to be an incentive on both sides, and in a lot of cases, it's money.
I'm struggling with that one a little bit, to be honest, because, yeah, as a leader, you need to make certain benchmarks, but as somebody that you're leading, your team that you're leading, they want to be paid for what they're doing, of course, but generally speaking, people just want to be part of something that's positive moving forward in a team group, and not feeling sick to their stomach every day that they have PMS, political misery syndrome. And I don't know, I think that's a leadership issue, not a team issue.
You can't have a team without a leader.
That's what I said, it's a leadership issue, not a team issue. So of course, as a leader, you have to make money to sell the programs that's going to encourage advertising, that's going to encourage ratings. And explaining all of that to the team, regardless of the backgrounds, is what makes that work. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right. Not only that, but we're a marketing agency. We've done a lot of work with millennials, and when they rate what's most important to them, when they rate what's most important to them, money actually is not number one. It's traditionally third or fourth in when they rank what they want from their jobs. And creativity ranks very, very highly. Being able to have some control or influence in what it is they're creating and the environment that they're working in, some autonomy, all of those things tend to rate a little bit higher than being paid. And again, I know you're not saying that it all boils down to everyone needs to be paid very highly, but I think, as a leader and understanding that that the bottom line for us needs to be, we need to get in advertisers, we need to be able to advertise against the things that we create. That, I don't think, can be passed all the way down to the people who are expected to be creative for us.
that shouldn't necessarily be their primary concern when they're trying to create. And I might have misunderstood what it was you were saying, but I think our teams, what should weigh down on them, I don't think is the fact that we're constantly needing to be selling or to be selling against. So, I mean, that's, again, I think that's my opinion, but I don't know that...
Well, that's why we're having a discussion
Yeah.
here. Everybody has the right to their opinion. Wait, I just have one quick question. Is today's Donald Trump's birthday? Do you know what generation he comes from, based on this? No, he's a boomer.
He's a boomer.
Boy George's birthday is today. Do you know what generation he comes from?
Who?
George. Boy George.
Oh.
Well, he's an X. Generation X.
He's a boomer too. He's 61. Okay, go ahead.
I just had a thought about the us and them sort of notion, and just a personal experience. I can't think of how many times I've walked into a room or been somewhere where I've been the only person like me, or looks like me, or is my age, or what have you, and I think it's a conscious effort. You can't just say when we leave here, I'm going to perform all these things. You'll forget them in 15 minutes. I think really it is, you make a note on your desk and you say, I'm going to go somewhere today that I haven't been. I'm going to talk to somebody I haven't spoken to before. If every room or every meeting that you go into, everyone looks like you, sounds like you, is like you, at some point I think you've got to say to yourself, I need to go to another meeting, go somewhere else. And it's difficult because it's not natural, it's not common. It's not like breathing. You have to train yourself to do it. Mm-hmm. And yes, so I think you can't just, it's not just going to happen. I'm going to go talk to you because you've got a Blue Jay hat on, and I'm from Toronto, so I'm going to say, I'm going to talk to that guy.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
It's a conscious thing that has to happen, and you can't do it by luck. You have to write it down and go and do it, and that's the only way around it.
I know plenty of people have cards with all the people that they work with. I did it too because I work with so many different people. Like the name, from hometown, and likes and dislikes. I mean, honestly, it's something that you can keep track of.
And it's work.
It's work. That's right.
Work. And we have time for one more.
Hi. I'm the mom of 2 millennials, and there are two things my daughter, especially my youngest daughter, that does that it bugs the hell out of me. So I will call her, okay? She's 20, this is my youngest. I will call her, and she won't answer. And a second later, she'll text me. It's like, why can't you just pick up the phone? And then another thing she says is, Mom, email is dead.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? We still use email. I use email every day to communicate. You're about to hit, to start working. And no email for me. No, so I will email her. She'll never respond. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is that I feel that we sound like our parents. We all sound like our parents. Yeah. I think that every generation always says the same thing about the upcoming generation. And I think we were saying that maybe in the 1800s, people were having the same exact, conversation.
I'm sure they were.
So it is what it is. It's inevitable. We're gonna grow old and hopefully, live beautiful lives. But we just have to embrace it, right?
That's right.
I'm only 29.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, me too.
Jocelyn, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And thank you all for joining us here for the Leadership Institute. All right, time for opening day. Yay!